Empaths are often perceived as someone who is weak, overly emotional or sensitive, or we may be perceived as a people pleaser or someone who experienced trauma with narcissists. But these traits don't fully define what an empath is. Empath is not a synonym for being an introvert, a high sensitive person, or codependent. And it's definitely not a synonym for being a victim of trauma or narcissistic abuse. Even though there may be some correlations and overlaps, like how both introverts and empaths don't like crowded places, but they are not the same thing. You can be an empath without being an introvert or a codependent. The main essence of being an empath is simply the ability to feel other people's emotion as if they are your own, without them telling you what their emotions are. It's not to be confused with empathy when someone tells you about what happened to them and you start to imagine what it's like to be in their shoes and you may feel what they're feeling. For example, when I tell other people that my dad passed away, some of them were like, "Oh dear, are you feeling okay?" They could imagine the grief and the pain of losing someone they love. But is that what I'm feeling right now in that moment? Or is that what I felt when my dad just passed away? When I told my friends about the news, I was actually feeling okay and more grounded. I wasn't feeling grief. So they're just imagining what I might have been feeling instead of what I'm feeling right now. When we talk about empath, we are talking about the current emotion that we pick up from others. We're not imagining what the other person has gone through or what the other person is feeling. Unless you have experienced this yourself before, you may not fully understand what this is, or you may even be skeptical about this. But let me just show you one example from my life, and I'll just clear some misconception along the way. So a few years ago, I used to go to this meetup once a week. Then one time, I noticed this facilitator, who is my friend, he was feeling down. And I sensed that he was feeling down the moment I stepped into the room. He didn't say anything at all about how he felt. But I just know it was very obvious to me. And I'm actually quite surprised that no one else seems to notice it. Because after the meetup, I wanted to stay back and ask my friend, what's wrong? Why is he feeling so down? But he went to the restroom and the other people were waiting for me to go back home together. So they were wondering why I was just standing there and wasn't moving. Again, they didn't say anything, but I felt their energy calling me to go. So I left them. When I got back home, I texted my friend and asked him whether he was feeling down, and he confirmed that he was feeling down. And the first thing he asked me is, "How do you know?" It's not that easy for an empath to explain to another person how we know what they're feeling. The simple answer is I just step into the room, and that's the energy I feel from him. Of course, it's more complex than this. Since I meet my friend every single week, I know where his energy level is most of the time. I know what his baseline level of energy is. He used to be more eager and more interested in facilitating the meetup. But that day he was feeling more like this. The energy is quite low. And even though physically, the physical appearance, he is showing a rather neutral and stoic posture and expression. But there is a huge drop in terms of the energy level. Anyone who is sensitive to energy will notice this. It's very obvious. Also, there are physical cues, like for example, he was half shaven that day. He didn't ask for donation after the meetup, which is what he usually does. And his tone sounded a little bit down. And just by looking at his eyes, I felt his sadness in his eyes. Sometimes people may argue that this isn't empathic. They may think that you're just good at reading body language and social cues, which is true. I don't deny this, because people who are empath usually have great intuition and also have great observation skills. And there are many different types of empath. There are like the intuitive empath and the emotional empath. It is difficult to separate the two, even though I lean more towards the intuitive empath. They usually come together as a package. That day when I stepped into the room, I felt my friend's emotion in my body. But at the same time, I used those physical signs that I observed to check against what I felt, to check if my intuitive knowing is accurate or not. Doing so will give me a more comprehensive understanding of my friend's emotion. And it doesn't matter if it's a physical sign, an emotional sign, or an energetic sign. It's all information, right? But when my friend asks me how I know, I just give him the physical observation because it will make more sense to the logical mind. It's much harder to explain how this works, especially through text messages. And one misconception that people have about empath is that we are mind readers. People are intimidated by empath because they think we can read their minds and we can pry into their privacy. Just to clarify this, we are not mind readers. I don't know what other people are thinking. Like, I knew what my friend was feeling, but I didn't know what happened to him that made him feel so sad. That's why I have to ask him what's wrong. And when he didn't share the cause of his sadness, I didn't probe any further. I do respect other people's boundaries and privacies. The reason why empaths seems like they are mind reader is because sometimes we know that you're lying. What you are saying and what you are feeling doesn't match. That's why there's a dissonance, and that's why we know you are lying. And sometimes we could intuitively guess why someone feels a certain way just based on the information we have gathered along the way. For example, if you have been talking about how great your partner is, and now you're not talking about your partner, maybe you had an argument with your partner, but we don't know for sure, and we can't read other people's mind. Communication is still very important to us, so you still need to talk to us. And it's not like empaths are deliberate in reading other people's energy or emotion. We don't go into the room and say, hey, today I'm just going to check what John is feeling, what he's up to. Tomorrow I'm going to check what Sally is feeling and what secret she may have. It's not like this. It's more like we just enter the room and we get this random hit of emotion from somebody. We're not intentionally prying into someone's privacy. It's not like we choose who we want to feel and who not to feel. If this is so, life for an empath will be so much easier because I'll just pick up all the positive energy and just avoid all the negative energy. Instead, we need to learn how to bring our energy back to ourselves, to contract the circle of influence so that we don't get affected by other people, and also learn to ground ourselves in our own energy so that we don't get distracted by other people's energy. Empaths also don't absorb everyone's emotion equally. People generally feel quite neutral. They don't give off any vibes. Even if they feel something, it's quite mild, so we don't really feel anything. It's only those who are physically close to us or those who are highly emotionally charged, they will have a greater impact on us. It's very difficult to ignore their energy because they are sending it out to a wider radius. Or if we are in a crowded places where there is a variety of different energy, that could be somewhat confusing and overwhelming for empath because we are bombarded with so many different kinds of energy. And if we are in an environment where people share the same kind of emotion, the emotion get magnified. Like we are in a corporate environment and there's a tight deadline, we may feel that all our colleagues are so stressed and overwhelmed, and that will affect us. This is the kind of environment that I don't enjoy working in because it can be very draining, not just work-wise, but also emotional-wise. As empath, we do get easily influenced by our environment. But that's not to say that we have totally no control over our empathic abilities. We do have some control. It's just that we're not taught in school like how to manage our own energy and attention. It's like fire. If you know how to use it, it can be really beneficial to you. You can use it to cook your food, you can use it to keep you warm. But if you don't know how to use it, or you use it carelessly, then it can be very destructive and may burn down the things that you love. So if you are an empath and you want to know how to manage your empathic abilities, watch this next video.